I arrived in Vienna on a very dull and dreary day, and I got to my Airbnb on a very dull and dreary street. Everything felt grey. I had not anticipated the supermarkets being closed on a Sunday, so I ended up having to order a takeaway. Part of me enjoyed pretending that I was just a local ordering takeaway, and I romanticised myself as a pianist composing music in my Viennese apartment. Sadly, the reality was not quite as romantic. Later, I headed out to hear some real music. I went to a classical concert in a beautiful church. I don't recommend pew seating, as whilst the music and the church were lovely, my back wasn't having such a good time. Nevertheless, it was a good experience. My first sleep in Vienna was less than to be desired. I awoke in the night feeling quite unwell, and so ensued a day of barely being able to move. I managed to get to the supermarket later in the day, but I missed the Sigmund Freud museum that I had booked, and I could hardly function overall. So sadly, my first full day in Vienna became a write-off day. Given that my experience of Vienna had so far been a bit mundane, I knew I needed to make the most of my final day. I figured out how to use the public transport system, and I got a train to the Klimt immersive experience. Before the main part of the exhibition, there were some paintings on display that had previously been lost in a fire. Black and white images of these paintings remained, but AI had been used to colorise the paintings. We often hear about technology in negative ways, so it was nice to see it used in this way. A corridor inspired by Klimt's paintings led to the main part of the exhibition, which consisted of large screens covering all the walls, moving images and music. It was one of the many times on my trip where I wished I could be there totally alone. You would think solo travel would make me crave being around people, but I kind of had the opposite experience. Despite other people being somewhat of a distraction, I enjoyed the exhibition. It almost felt like I was inside a painting and part of it. Following the exhibition, I had hoped to go to the Sigmund Freud museum that I had missed the day before, so I was disappointed to discover that it was actually closed. So I made the last-minute decision to go to the zoo. Vienna Zoo is the oldest zoo in the world and has frequently been voted the best zoo in Europe. On my final evening in Vienna, I enjoyed the glamorous task of laundry. I also really enjoyed an ordinary home-cooked meal. I don't like eating out and getting takeaways all the time, so I was actually very appreciative of something plain. And that's my postcard from Vienna. I sensed that I had not really experienced the true essence of Vienna overall. I left feeling somewhat disappointed. Staying in a city apartment reminded me that I don't like flat blocks and grey streets. And being unwell reminded me that I was totally alone. Having little time also reminded me that you really have to make the most of the small moments, and perhaps not being well was a sign of overdoing it. I knew I needed to slow my pace a little for the next place, as sometimes stopping and enjoying the stillness is important too.